Good things come to those who wait. But we didn't have to wait that long before the Commanders got some impact players in free agency, and we'll discuss them next on this edition of Commanders Wrap. Kevin, explosive week, explosive week. How are you doing this week, by the way, before we get started?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I mean, I can't complain. I know last week we were wanting fireworks, we were wanting something because
Yeah,
because
yeah,
there were so many things going on. I'm just glad I was on spring break so that I could actually be home and see all of this unfold. And so this has been fun, and I think we just owe it to our fans to jump right into free agency and our thoughts on it. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So the Commanders have signed a bunch of free agents, everyone. But 12 12 of them were not even on this team last year. We have something about seven players on defense and five or six players on offense. The free agent acquisitions are defensive end Odafi Oweh, linebacker Leo Chanel, cornerback Amik Robertson, defensive end K'Lavon Chaisson, defensive tackle Tim Settle. We remember him.
yep.
Safety Nick Cross, defensive end Charles Ominahu, excuse me, tight end Chigosium Okonkwo, running back Rashad White, running back Jerome Ford, wide receiver De'Ami Brown, we remember him, and wide receiver Van Jefferson. Kevin, a lot of names. I about ran out of breath there. This
Yeah.
was the kind of free agency we as fans were hoping for, and AP delivered. You can't say he didn't deliver. Talk us through these signings and which of these free agents are you excited to see on this team? Talk to us.
Yeah. First off, I just like I love the approach that the Commanders took here in free agency this year. They didn't just add bodies. They added competition. They added depth, versatility, especially on the defensive side. Like you just mentioned, Dr. Wonderful, the 12 players. This first wave shows that they really wanted to reshape the roster. I'll start with the defensive side because that's where most of the action seemed to happen at. Um, the addition of Odafi Oweh is a big one for me. He's still young, extremely explosive off the edge. He brings real pass rush upside. You pair that kind of athleticism with a fresh defensive scheme, and he can become a major disruptor. A type of guy that can really turn a game around. Um, Another interesting pickup there is Charles. I'm gonna probably not say this name correctly. Ominhu. I don't know how it is. Um, but do some research on him. When he's healthy, he's a proven pass rusher. He can line up multiple spots on the line. That kind of flexibility is huge for defensive coordinators who like to mix the fronts up and pressure packages. So that's big there. I also like the signing of Leo Chanel. He's a physical linebacker who plays downhill. He brings that toughness to the middle of the defense. That's in the secondary, bringing in Robertson, and Nick Cross. To add speed and depth. Robertson is he's a kind of a scrappy corner who competes on every snap, and Cross has a great range at safety. Of course, on the D line, I also like the return of Tim Settle. For those, I'm sure everybody's heard by now. If you weren't aware, I'm sure most people were. Obviously, you just mentioned it too. Started his career in Washington. Look, he's a powerful interior defensive tackle who that guy can plug gaps, against the run, but he can also push the pocket from the inside. Interior pressure is something defenses, need more than ever because of the quarterback step up in the pocket so quickly. Bringing Settle back, to add size, familiarity, and depth to that defensive front. Um, Honestly, that move might fly under the radar compared to some of the others, but it could be a sneaky good signing for the defensive line rotation. Um, Now on the offensive side, we have intrigued by, and I'm going to mess his name up too, Chigazim Okun Okonwo. I don't know what it is. Okon. Yep.
Chagosium, yeah, but everybody calls him Chick.
Okay.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Chig. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
everybody
gonna go with
calls him
that one.
Chick. Yeah.
Um, he seems to be one of those modern tight ends. He can stretch the field. I think that guy can be able to create some mismatches and turn some short passes into big plays. Uh, Move on here to Rashad White. Um, Yeah, Rashad White, and I've watched him play a good bit. He's not just a runner; he's a weapon in the passing game. That kind of versatility fits well with the modern offenses that want their backs involved in space. So I think it'll work good. I think him and Jaden could get something going. At wide receiver, bringing in Van Jefferson gives the team another veteran who can stretch the field and help around out the receiver room for sure. And then Diami's coming back. I know some people were saying they got rid of Diami because Cliff didn't fit Cliff's system and this and that. Hearsay, I suppose. I don't know, but Diami can definitely stretch the field. We've seen it time and time again. He's a guy that can make big plays. So I'm happy to get him back. Uh, the player I'd say I'm most excited about, I'd say it's the guy that I mentioned last week on here, who I thought was a realistic signing that you asked for us, and that's Odafi Oweh. If he hits the ceiling, he could be the kind of edge rusher that changes games. Every defense needs that guy who can get to the quarterback. Um, yeah, and I'm really excited to see him overall. This feels like a balanced free agency class. Younger players with upside. You got some proven veterans in there, and it's a clear emphasis on improving the defense. And even half these signings hit. Um, Washington could look very different this season for sure.
Yeah, without question. I think for me, the whole point of free agency is to get it to where no one knows what you need and what you're drafting in the draft,
Yep.
right? Because that's
Yep.
actually a disadvantage to you if everyone else, if every other team in the NFL knows exactly who you're going after. So, and I think they just filled out a lot of spots. I don't think we predicted, Kevin, that they would fill out these many spots. Most of these guys that they signed, and it's the guys they signed, most of the guys that they signed will be significant contributors. Like they didn't just sign a whole bunch of camp bodies.
Yep. Yep.
Maybe
Yep.
you want to say that about, Van Jefferson and Jerome Ford, or maybe, but I don't know the Ayuk situation any more than anybody else. I don't know that Carnell Tate is going to be there at 7 any more than anybody else.
Yep.
So I don't think I can sit up here and say, excuse me, that they're camp bodies. But I do like the plan, and they kind of it fits what AP likes in players, but it also clearly fits what I think both these offensive and defensive coordinators want: young, athletic, strong guys who are ascending and who are also versatile.
Yes. Yes.
Because one of the things Durante Jones said is we want to be multiple. That was one of the statements that he said about his defense. One of the things that Blau said is we want to make the same things look different and different things look the same, right? And so one of the
Right.
ways you do that, like theoretically, is you just have people who can play a multiplicity of roles. It's that old, as my dad said, my dad who's a great deal older than me, he said, well, when I was coming up, it was good to be a jack of all trades and a master of none, right? So it's like
Yep.
being that thing where you want players who are good at everything. And that allows you to be able to deploy different things. Because for
Yes.
me, the ultimate defense is the defense that doesn't have a scheme. And the ultimate offense is the offense that doesn't have a scheme. Right. So week one, West Coast offense is what works for this. Next week, no, the Air Coryell is what works for that. Right.
Yeah.
Same thing with
Yep.
these. And can you imagine the fits that would put other opposing coordinators in if you had really no clue what offense or what defense you were about to face week in and week out. But that can only be done if you have a bunch of players who as Durante Jones said, are positionless. And I think in many ways in which you can allude to from an offense, if you're going to make different things look the same and same things look different, you have to have players who can both do different things and make them look the same and do the same things and make them look different. And that sounds
Yes.
to me like a really versatile player.
Absolutely.
So take what you want from there. This is all theory.
Right,
This is
right.
all theory. But when you look at like who they added on, there seems to be a very clear, direct intentionality in these targets, and particularly the age range, who they are, and what they're doing. They're kind of getting a lot of these guys in their prime. Um,
Yep,
but I will say, shout out to Tim Settle. I know many fans who remember Tim Settle never actually wanted him to leave.
yep,
So I know for many fans, they're happy that Tim Settle is back. But I will say this: go watch Logan Thompson's analysis on Locked On Commanders of Tim Settle, and he will actually talk to you about how much Tim Settle has actually grown in his time since leaving Washington, and how much Washington is actually getting a better football player in Tim Settle now than when he left us a few years ago. So I would say that's a good watch. But Kevin, you and I, we're gonna go to our next segment, and we just mentioned that this free agency has given us a lot of options and a lot of options in the draft, and we love that. And just a week ago, I think both you and I had defense as the likely pick, no matter the position. And that still may be.
yep.
But Kevin, the draft Jeremiyah Love train is picking up some serious steam. But linebacker, wide receiver, and safety, I would say, are still actual needs for this team, and I would actually rank Mike linebacker as the highest need. Leo Chanel is not a Mike Knight linebacker, just so everyone knows. He's not a Mike linebacker. He's better as an off-ball linebacker. And I think Mike is the highest need, depending on how you feel about Jordan McGee. Now, last week, Kevin, I gave you a draft challenge of telling me who Washington would pick and why. But that was before these free agent signings that we just had. So now we have these free agent signings. And we're going to do this again with projected top 10 prospects. This is after week one of free agency. Who, Kevin, is Washington going to draft at number 7? And these are your choices: Reuben Bain, Caleb Down, Jeremiah Love, Carnell Tate, or Sonny Styles. Now, I want to remind fans that last week we actually had Mansour Delane on here, but I actually think there's possibly a chance that Sonny Styles falls to Washington, and so that's why he's put up here, because we do have Sonny Styles ranked higher than Mansour Delane. So those are your choices. Again, Kevin: Reuben Bain, Caleb Downs, Jeremiah Love, Carnell Tate, Sonny Styles, and this is post first week of Commanders free agency. Who are you taking and why?
I'm gonna stick with Caleb Downs. If he's there at 7, I think he's really hard to pass up. Um, in my opinion, he's just one of them rare safeties. He can impact the game everywhere. Coverage, run support, leadership. Players like that can transform a defense. I will say though, the interesting name here is definitely Jeremiah Love. Um, if Washington believes he's a true game-changing type running back, um, yeah, it definitely could be tempting, especially with how offenses are leaning, on those explosive type playmakers. And he is an explosive running back. He can run and catch, hit big plays, which definitely fits a quarterback who stresses defenses with the option game. Um, what I like about him a lot is that he's a true 3-down back, workhorse back. He can run inside. He can bounce outside with elite speed. Catches passes like a receiver. I know scouts I was reading said he can run routes like a wideout. That makes him pretty dangerous on them screens, wheel routes and checkdowns, and that gives me a little bit of comparison to Jameer Gibbs, and in that type of play anyway. He ran about a 4.3 in the 40 at the combine. And then of course for 2025 stats at the University of Notre Dame, he had almost 1,400 rushing yards, 18 rushing touchdowns, and averaged 6.9 yards per carry. That combination of speed and vision plus receiving ability is why he's widely considered the RB1 of this class. So personally though, again, I'm still going to lean towards Caleb Downs. Just for me, he's that top tier defensive talent. Adding a player like him, I think you can anchor your secondary for years. But ultimately, I think they're completely fine with going either way. I'm not going to be mad at either one, right? So, yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, without question. Yeah, that's the thing. I can't be mad at any of those players if they take them, but I'm gonna be honest, Kevin. Here's where I sit. If Sonny Styles is on this list, he's the pick.
Uh-huh.
But like he's just the pick. We need someone steady. We need someone to be our linebacker and the quarterback of our defense for the next decade. I think Sonny Styles has everything to be London Fletcher, what Monty Coleman was for any of us who are old enough to remember 20-year linebacker Monty Coleman, right? And what Fletcher
Yep.
I'm gonna if Sonny Styles is on this list and those other guys are there, he's the pick.
Right.
But if Sonny Styles is gone and all those other dudes are there, Jeremiyah Love is the pick. You know how much I love the run game. You know how so it doesn't take a lot to sell me on a running back. Sonny Styles is the pick for me based on need. You want to talk about something we've been searching for and something that we still don't have. This would be why he would be the pick based on need, and I actually think that he would still be BPA of those players there. But and you look at running back, we've added some running backs, and while you can say, well, they're not numbered, they're what we've added is good enough to get through a season with, especially when you got other types of cuts and things like that that are prone to happen. But that's where I am. You're more likely to be able to find yourself an impact running back than you are to be able to find yourself a impact middle linebacker, and that's been shown recently in our time. So that's why for me, if Sonny Styles and Jeremiyah Love and all those guys, Sonny Styles is the pick. But if he's gone, the pick for me is Jeremiyah Love.
Yep.
No, that's for me. Now last week I was with you. Like the pick was Caleb Downs. So much has
Yeah.
happened. So many things have happened.
Yep.
That was before free agency. So that's more what that's about. But I'm not going to be mad at Caleb Downs either, right? Because I think they're going to play him a little bit closer to the line and he'd have more impact than, say, your traditional safety who's all the way back here. So I'm not going to be mad at Caleb Downs either. They're going to get themselves a dude at number 7, and we're just going to have to be happy about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Or possibly they trade back, right? But we'll see.
Right. If we
Yeah.
trade back, I'd love somebody like Mansour Delane. We still have a need at corner, in my
Yep. We do.
opinion.
I'm not gonna be mad at that.
So if a trade came, I would not hate Mansour Delane, even though to me he's a top 10, top 11 pick. So I'm not trying to trade all the way back. I still want to be somewhere around the
Yeah.
top 10
I
if I
agree.
wanted Mansour
I agree.
Delane.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a talent and I'm not trying to drop. I told you I'd take him at 7. Right, right. Because the difference between 7 and 11 ain't that much to me, or 7 and 10 ain't that much to me. So that's still a top 10 pick. So you're just picking them at 7 instead of 10.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, in a trade back scenario, that would be the guy that I'd be looking at. But still, we can't drop that far.
Right. Right.
But I don't think he's the pick at 7. I don't.
Yep.
So, but thanks as always for your analysis, Kevin. Look, free agency is still happening. So, Kevin and I are going to be back next week, particularly to discuss the press conferences of our recently signed free agents. They had a lot of interesting things to say. about why they came here and what coaches said. And so I think it'll be interesting for Kevin and us to Kevin and I to go back and cover that and see what we're talking about, what they were talking about in the press conferences. So until next week, I'm Dr. Wonderful. He's Kevin Bayne, and this has been your weekly edition of Commander's Wrap, where you get all your relevant news and a little opinion too in 15 minutes.